A tumultuous year in politics. Eric Adams leaves the government stage, and so does Andrew Cuomo as a young social media superstar sends them to the showers. And what about 2026? The governor's race and Democratic efforts to flip the House. The Point starts right now.
So help me God.
You're gambling with World War III.
Thank you. God bless New York.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Well, there is nothing I like better than chewing the political fat with Dick Brennan. It's our annual confab. But, of course, we have to start with the mayor's race. How did Zohran Mamdani pull this off?
Well, first of all, I just want to tell you, Marcia, I have to be careful because I know on this couch you could say something, and in 2 weeks you'll be in a political commercial that runs over and over again. So, and that could be good publicity, but we don't know. But as for the mayor's race,
I mean, how did he do it?
Well, first of all,
I mean, he was at 1% when he started.
The world has changed, and he is a political genius. Let's say you can disagree with his politics, but he has this ability. And I think it started, for me at least, when I saw him do a commercial early in the year. It was probably a TikTok video where he was fully dressed with a suit and tie on, which I always love. He always has the tie on, no matter what. And
he only has 3 ties, by the way.
Well, although I saw light blue and I was shocked.
We're giving out secrets. Yes, 3 ties.
That's right.
And by the way, 2 suits or something.
I was going to say
that.
dark suits. But I love the way he's always has that, no matter how hot it is, no matter how cold it is. And he turned, and he was on a beach, and he was talking about presumably the rent freeze. And he ran and dove into the cold Atlantic. I guess it was last January.
Well, he did January 1st. He was
with the polar bears and everything.
Talking about a freeze.
Yes, and I'm still thinking about that ad now. Now, fast forward to about 2 weeks ago. Again, the political savvy of taking an issue. The ticket prices of the World Cup, okay?
Unbelievable, right?
I can't tell you how many young people who want to go to those World Cup, including my son-in-law, who's from Colombia, and he really wants to go. And he's outraged, and he's been complaining to me. And then all of a sudden, who comes up with the perfect political ad? I see Zoran Mamdani on the screen playing soccer with his tie on, which is there's a certain comical edge there. But there's a real serious, clever edge, which is, hey, affordability, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to be your champion. And, you know, there was some talk that he was getting the ticket prices lowered. There were going to be $60 tickets. But here's a guy who has his finger on the pulse, but he also is the perfect messenger, and he's come up with
because he smiles, because he seems to have joy in the job.
No matter, I love the way that no matter what the question, he seems to smile at the answer, even when you're asking it, Marcia. I wish I could do that, but no, it's a messenger. You know, Donald Trump, he was a very clever, you know, communicator, and he used Twitter, and that carried him. Of course, he had all those years on The Apprentice.
But don't you think that Trump saw what Mamdani was doing and said, he's in my image, that he basically did things that I did, only he's younger?
Oh, younger, and maybe he's gone to the next level, which is the TikTok level, so to produce these entire large videos. But yes, we saw that in the Oval Office, which we just saw.
Were you surprised by that, by the way?
I think we were all surprised by that.
I mean, you've covered Trump for a very long time.
Yes.
Were you surprised by that?
I was actually stunned by that. I was sitting on that set when it was breaking news, and the first words out of my mouth were, okay, who saw that one coming? Because I don't think anyone saw that coming, but that was the cleverness of Donald Trump. He said, hey, you know what? If this affordability matters, and if if this guy's trumping me, so to speak, with young people, maybe I got to do something. Now, 2 weeks later, I mean, he was saying, oh, this nonsense affordability. Trump loves the show right at the moment, where I think Mamdani sees the long game, always.
But see, you know what was really interesting about that? When Trump ran for president, and I know you recall it because I think you covered an event in the Bronx where he was there.
Good memory.
And he was talking about affordability and reducing grocery prices. It was an argument that resonated with a lot of people here in New York City, and yet he wasn't able to deliver on that. So then he's sort of feeling the pressure of a Mamdani who says affordability is my middle name.
Listen, affordability, I think, if we're going to look to the next year, and I don't know how the list goes. Marcia has the list here, whether we're going to... I don't want to jump ahead and get in trouble and cover next week.
You could never get in trouble.
Oh, we'll see before the end of this. But I think next year, it's almost going to be exclusive affordability. And I know I'm jumping ahead on Donald Trump because Donald Trump's issue of the border, hey, he was successful. And that's great news for him. It's also bad news for him because that was an issue, was a cutting issue. And he's got to pivot. I know he's still running around and doing all his border stuff.
Yeah, but look, you and I both know that November 2026, the Democrats are salivating at the possibility of taking control of the House. And the key issue is going to be affordability, and if the Democrats have their way, health care.
Well, health care to me, and it's funny you said this, Marcia, because every day Marcia and I talk pretty much, and this was going to be one of my talking points for today when we're in the hallway. So let's just bring it in here. Health care to me is not only going to be one of the issues, it will be the issue for next year and maybe years to come.
So
I've been through the system, and it's recently...
Having said that,
yeah.
And I know that you are a keen observer of the political scene. How can the House and the Senate now, with the Affordable Care subsidies expiring at the end of December, how can they not do something about it now, instead giving the Democrats an issue to campaign on for the rest of 2026?
Well, funny you should mention that, because I was speaking just recently with Mike Lawler about this, because he was one of 4 Republicans who said, you know what, we're going to vote with Hakeem Jeffries. He said he didn't necessarily agree with the legislation, but he agreed with the process of moving forward. And let's face it, these guys are in those districts that are really vulnerable.
Swing districts.
Swing districts. We have, you know, in Nassau, Suffolk County, there are some, and then we have the Hudson Valley where Mike Lawler is. And he said, look, and it's funny, he used some colorful language, guy from Manhattan College Catholic School, I couldn't believe it, but he used some colorful language saying how angry he was.
Because his political future depends on it.
That's right. His political future, and I think a lot of, he made a fascinating, and I've got to remember it now, it was either 2/3 or 3/4 of all people on the ACA are in Trump states, okay? This is not a blue issue, it's not a red issue.
So why aren't they doing it? Why? I mean...
For the same reason why I think sometimes Joe Biden was very slow, and I don't mean that in a mental way, I just mean in the way politically they responded to the border. They were, and all the reporting says now how slow they were, they didn't move. I think the Democrats are onto this, and the Republicans are going to get onto it pretty quickly, because if they don't, they're in real big trouble next year.
But if the subsidies expire at the end of the year, and on January 1st, everybody's health care premiums go up, how is that a winning issue for the Republicans? You're giving the Democrats a total opportunity to slam them.
So what happened is the Democrats, they upped the subsidies right around COVID, okay? They originally had the subsidies, as we go all the way back to 2010. Then around COVID, they made it free for a lot of people. And the minute you say free, the Republicans, they don't like that. Even if it's real poor people, they don't like that.
Yeah, but it's their constituents.
Of course it is. It's their constituents. But once their constituents start making it known to them that this just isn't about big cities, it's about poor all around the country. I heard an interview with Joe Manchin, senator, obviously, from West Virginia. He said, I have arguably the poorest state in the country. And he said, my constituents are upset because they feel like they don't get as much help as the poor people in big cities. These are poor people in Trump states.
I get that.
But he also said this. He said, you know, when I was a governor, all the governors got together, red, blue, whoever they were, and they all said, let's come up with a plan. There was none of this, you're red, you're blue, we need this.
So why doesn't it happen now? Why are we so divided that we can't, even on something as universal as health care, why can't we come up with a plan?
Well, I think there have been plans. It's just what you're going to agree upon. I think we have a Congress right now. We know the problems in Congress. People don't even talk in Congress. So if you can't even get people to talk to each other. Now, the good news is if you hear from people like Mike Lawler, and he's saying, look, I got to do for my constituents, okay? When you hear more of those Republicans, and then there were the 3 in Pennsylvania who said the same thing, well, I think the message is going to get to...
and others.
Yeah, and the message is going to get to Mike Johnson. I mean, it already is. He's been under siege the last month.
Yeah, but he hasn't done anything about it.
Well, I think because he has to get his talking points, his walking points from the White House, from the president, and from his, the guy's
but the president, as recently as 2 weeks ago, said he was worried about the midterm elections. And as you know, often the party in power loses seats in the midterm elections. So he knows this. He should jump on the bandwagon.
What, is he counting on redistricting? I don't know if you can do it that quickly. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. But he's absolutely correct. I mean, redistricting, even if you're having a pretty good first year, the second term, the second year is always trouble, and the midterm elections are going to be trouble.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back. I am back with my friend and colleague, Dick Brennan. We were talking about the mayor's race, and I wonder what your take was on Eric Adams and his decision not to run in the Democratic primary and to run as an independent and then to just jump out of the race totally and endorse.
Marcia, you and I, we go back to those days when he came into office and he was Mayor Swagger. And I always thought Eric Adams was perfect for the city. We remember when he was up in the legislature, he could speak like no one else in terms of having a soundbite, being inspirational, having an incredible story. And, I don't want to use the phrase, tragedy, Shakespearean, whatever, but to see it end like this, it was very disappointing, to say the least.
But you also saw that at the end of his term, he was doing several things. Number one, trying to do things that would make it more difficult for Zohran Mamdani, but also bragging about some of the things that he did. And I wonder if you think that he actually did accomplish things and you agree with his theory that he did a lot of things.
Look, I mean, the mayor's job is an executive job, as we were saying before. It's not about the old joke, and it's absolutely true. We're going to judge Mamdani. We're not going to judge him on how he's a democratic socialist. We're going to judge, did he pick up the garbage? Did he plow the streets? Did he keep the streets safe? Okay, and now he has what it assumes to be the best choice for police commissioner, the one who was sitting there already, Jessica Tisch. So those are the issues. They're not going to be the red and blue issues. Governors, mayors, they've got to get down to the nitty-gritty. And can he be an effective executive? Executive work is different from being in the Senate.
Do you think he understands that?
I think he understands. He's obviously a very smart man. Now, we're going to get into some budget problems. We know that, and maybe you'll get into it too here.
$2 billion.
Yeah, billions. I mean, no one can argue with the fact that universal child care is a perfect idea, and it's also a very important idea.
But it's going to cost $7 billion for New York City alone.
Or every number changes, but it's always billions. What I have to laugh about is, and you've covered Albany, I've covered Albany, they always say, well, we'll find the money, as if some guy goes around with a flashlight and sees a closet. Oh, there's $7 billion.
Well, there are ways that they can tax people.
I mean,
but the question is, do you really want to? If you're talking about affordability, how do you then say, but we're going to have new taxes?
Well, not only that. I mean, the governor, she's got something going on next year, too.
Well, we have to talk about that.
Oh, I jumped ahead. But back to Mamdani. Can he split the difference? I think what he's going to want to do is not make a lot of noise. If he doesn't make a lot of noise, if there aren't a lot of, like, I'm having a press conference every single day, then let's face it, being the mayor of the city of New York, Donald Trump said it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, every day, it's like being the manager of the Yankees. There's a press conference right after the game, and every day you have to answer. And, hey, here's a longer-term issue that we have with mayors. There's always an us and them psychology that develops, that the press, we're going to get after them. And you saw Eric Adams, they cut the press conferences down to one a week. And and once you do that, you're in such a position of defensiveness that it doesn't help you at all. And let's hope that this mayor-elect and then the mayor will keep a more cordial, because we're the ones, hey, look, I'm not giving us a big pat on the back, but the bottom line is we all want the city to work. Everybody wants the city to work, even the media.
Well, so let me ask you this question, because, it's sort of an interesting thing. You talked about us and them, we and them. And during the Adams administration, it was the city council versus the mayor. It was pretty ugly. And this new mayor-elect had the opportunity to try to influence who would become the next council speaker. And depending on who you talk to, he either didn't do it or messed it up.
Well, I mean...
And so did he make a mistake?
No,
and will he have an us and them relationship with the city council, where the new incoming speaker, Julie Menon, is much more middle of the road than
But she's also she's a very competent, intelligent woman. And we do need middle of the road. I mean, you can't have all on one side and the other. And I think, so far at least, Mamdani has signaled his openness to bringing in experienced people, maybe acceding to the business community by keeping Jessica Tisch on or not. Once again, the ideas are all there. The ideas of a community-type policing, all good ideas. I said a minute ago, universal childcare. It could be something great. Even for people who don't have kids in the public schools, I hear them complaining about childcare in general. The cost of childcare. Talk about health care.
But they have to phase it in.
Right.
There's no way that the state can afford to pay $7 billion out of their budget just for childcare in New York City, and it's much larger if you take the entire state.
Well, you take other questions. Will there be, another millionaire's tax or a billion? Somebody said, what about a billionaire's tax?
All right, so let me ask you this question.
Okay.
So he promised three things, well, a lot of things, but, obviously a rent freeze. He promised affordability. He promised universal child care.
And the buses, don't forget the buses.
And free buses. How much of those things will he accomplish?
I think the bus situation, I mean, Janno Lieber has signaled...
He's against it.
Of course he's against it. And if he's against it, that's a high mountain to climb. And the MTA has so many issues to deal with. We did a story a couple of months ago on just the issue of a threat from a storm. They are fighting wars on so many fronts. So I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. Maybe there'll be something, credits for people of a certain income. That has been suggested instead of just free buses. Hey, how about they are doing a heck of a job, it seems at least, of stopping fare evasion on the subways. Are there better ways to do it on the buses? I'm sure they're thinking about it.
Lieber says that you should give tax credits for people who can't afford it to take the bus.
Right.
But if you're some rich person who lives on Fifth Avenue, you take the bus down to the museum, you shouldn't get a free bus.
Well, I think that's a fair way of looking at it. And look, there were brilliant gimmicks on a campaign trail that Zoran Mamdani used. And, the old story about politics, tell me the three things you're in favor of, and then I'll get elected. Ronald Reagan did it in the 1980s.
But see, here's the thing. He was in favor of a pilot for free buses, so they had 2 lanes in every borough.
Right.
And then when they came to renew it, he lost that fight in Albany, and the pilot went away.
Well, supposedly that had something to do with Carl Hastie and those two.
Yeah, well,
maybe
Albany is a tough crowd.
Yeah, Albany's a very tough crowd. But no, in general, though, I think the bus issue, I think the child care issue is, yes, it's more expensive, but I think it's going to have a little more support from people in the city.
Kathy Hochul, for sure.
Yes, Kathy Hochul's going to try and find something. And then, let's see the timing. Maybe it's not going to be universal. Maybe it's a little less. Maybe it's something that's phased in. They love phased in, because phased in is when you kick the can down the road.
Yeah, but phased in allows you to say, I have a victory.
Yes, you have a victory. We're going to phase this in. But then he has got to realize what the governor's up against. And that means I can't imagine her raising taxes anywhere, because Elise Stefanik and Blakeman on Long Island, they're sitting there just salivating for that.
Well, we're going to talk about that in the next section, but we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. Was 2025 a good year or a bad year? And will 2026 be any better? New Yorkers are weighing in on your point. Sir, quick question. I know you can do this. What's the best thing about 2025?
Ooh. I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet.
I think moving to New York, and I've met so many amazing people. Being alive.
I'm running for mayor.
Running for mayor was the best thing?
Absolutely the best.
My daughter moving here, that was the best thing for me. Other than that, yeah, it was a pretty rough year.
The best thing about 2025 is Trump's power is waning.
Actually, a recent best thing. The video of the Muslim young man who jumped the terrorist in Australia.
What's the best thing about 2025?
That it's almost over.
What's the worst thing?
Trump.
The creed and who's in the White House, that's the worst thing. Unbelievable. The worst thing that Trump is still president.
What's the worst thing?
At the moment, this weather.
All the tragedy and nonsense going on, you know? Probably some of the people here.
Why?
Some of them are just like dealing with losses.
My mom passed.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
The homeless and emotionally disturbed issue ain't getting no better.
I thought you were going to say I lost for mayor.
Oh, no. Let's face it, the masters of the universe were all stacked against me. Trump, Elon Musk, all the billionaires.
Are you optimistic about 2026?
Yes.
Why?
Has to be better than 2025. It just has to be.
I'm very optimistic. I think, hey, look, we got to give the new mayor an opportunity. He won by a mandate.
Except for the politics, I am.
I want to be. And sometimes I am. It kind of depends on what I've read. I'm not optimistic, I'm hopeful.
Hopeful is good.
I am. I feel like it's going to be like a fun like new year, like bring in like good energy.
So what are you looking forward to in 2026?
My daughter getting married.
My grandchildren, always.
I'm looking forward to selling some property I have in Puerto Rico. It's a white elephant.
Hopefully the economy changing a little.
Hopefully that some Republicans will grow a backbone and remember that there are more important things than sucking up to Trump.
I hope for a better year, people to get better, have a little more respect and change.
I want to become an RN. I just finished part of my schooling, so I'm going to the next step. I'm going to get a car. I'm going to like level up my life.
It's supposed to be a tough year, 2025. There's a lot of wars going on. I'd love to see some peace in the world.
Happiness, long life, health, prosperity, and good vibes. Peace towards the world. Let's hope the world brings peace.